Okay, so for today's showcase, we're going to be going over a couple different things. We have some new item stuff and a lot of new crafting stuff to go over. There are a few quality of life changes I want to go over as well. Most of the stuff in this showcase is going to be crafting focused, so you can expect that ahead of time. We have moved away from hairstyles and creation, not as in we aren't doing them anymore, but as in I feel like we should be showing off some other stuff in the showcases, because I know that, you guys kind of get the gist from the last showcase. I was talking about how we're just going to be porting over new hairstyles with the new color and everything, so there's no real rush there with that. Um, Obviously, I want to get them all in the game, but, it's a very mundane task. It takes probably 20 minutes or so to get all of the 20 hairstyles in. And while I do want to mess with the accessories, that's also kind of a small thing. So for right now, I'm going to be focusing on crafting and getting that done, which I think I have. I did promise you guys that I was going to be showing off quite a few recipes, and I got a few done, and then I realized that I needed to redo how crafting works, or not how crafting works, but how crafting recipes are oriented, for a couple different reasons that I'll explain later on. Um, so those recipes aren't in. However, I did get some other recipes done just to show off the ideas that I've implemented, and I think that you guys will be pleased with those anyway, and I think that they actually serve more of a purpose than the recipes I initially intended for, because those were just very basic. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the crafting menu and show you guys what I mean. So first thing you'll notice probably, assuming you've been watching these showcases, if not, no big deal, but I'm just saying, the biggest difference is these tabs, or are these tabs on the side here. So this is actually going to be a small quality of life change I want to mention over here as well. So when you open these menus now, it actually simulates you clicking on one of these tabs. The reason I didn't do this before is because I would have to have this whole function built in for when you would click. So I'd have to basically replicate the click function itself. Whereas I recently realized I can actually just call the function that is called when you click something manually. So I don't actually need you to click something in order to act as if you had clicked something, which is cool. I didn't realize event functions in Velocity work that way, which is my own bad. Now I do, so that makes my life 100 times easier, and there's really no repercussions there, so that's just one little thing, but whenever you open this menu now, it'll default to this screen, which I think is pretty cool. I'm very happy with that, and the same goes for here, so it'll default to this crafting tab every time you open, which is the idea. So you might be wondering what these tabs are for and why they're so close together. I'm going to be explaining that in a second. First of all, though, I want to mention this. So this is the same recipe as before. It's the Mundane Tome. It's the one I was using to show off all this different stuff before. Now, however, it's being used to show off a new thing down here. So previously, everything was generic as far as recipes, as far as ingredients, I should say. So recipes would have, say, 5 gems as a ingredient requirement. So you'd have to get 5 gems, but it didn't matter what kind of gem. And that's fine for some recipes. Like, for instance, if you're trying to make like an armor piece or something, then it's fine to just require 5 ingots or 5 alloys, whatever. In my opinion, at least, I don't think that matters. However, when you're trying to make specific stuff, like say potions, you want specific herbs and specific amounts of those herbs, and you might not care about what, say, ore they put in. Like, it might be a constitution potion that requires iron, or any other kind of reinforcing ore. It doesn't really matter what kind of ore it is, right? However, you do want to make sure the herbs are right, otherwise the potions don't really have meaning. You can kind of just throw in whatever herbs you want, which doesn't make a ton of sense, whereas the armor would, if that makes sense. So, what I've done here is I've added specific requirements. So you can see here that this is a gem type ingredient, so it still has this overlay. It still has the same overlay as the gem, but it actually says it requires a sapphire, which is true. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and then mine up here. So this is Jasper. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys real quick. Obviously it's Jasper. Oh, that's weird. That's a bug, actually. It just it doesn't subtract the Y position after it adds it, but regardless, beside the point. So I have that Jasper in my inventory, and if I go ahead here, I can actually see that I can select it here. This is another overlay issue. This is actually because the gem icon that pops up when you click this is actually an overlay of these boxes, which is something I have to fix. So they appear on automatically the layer of the box, and then these are different. They are actually a layer above the box, so there's nothing I can do to change that if it's an overlay. So I just need to make that, I just need to fix that so it's not, it doesn't work that way basically. Regardless, you can see that I can pick that, right? Now if I go ahead and hit this, it'll say you don't have any items of ingredient type, which is the idea. So because I don't have any sapphire, it won't let me put any into that slot. Now this doesn't make a lot of sense because it's a mundane tome. The the requirements here for the ingredients don't really make a lot of sense. So I decided to make a separate recipe here for quote-unquote a vitality potion. You will notice that these actually say 0%. I guess that counts as a bug. It's really not that big a deal to just show that it doesn't add anything. I think that it might actually be a good idea just to have a different word there, say like, this doesn't provide stat bonuses, or this is like a utility item or something like that. But for right now, it's not something I'm super worried about. I think that it conveys the idea that this doesn't have any stat bonuses pretty easily, so not a priority basically. Anyway, you can see here that this is an actual quote-unquote recipe. So one of the other things I wanted to demonstrate here was that previously I used this icon here for the mundane tome, so it would use this little recipe icon, which is going to change in the future for the record. I know that it's the same as this icon, just reversed, but for example's sake, anyway, I wanted to show off that this is now this icon for this, and then this is the actual flask icon itself, or rather the larger flask icon. And another thing here is that I've done some adjustments to how it handles these icons. So previously there was this very, very weird bug where around half the time it just wouldn't actually pull up the right icon for the recipe, so this wouldn't actually pop up, it would just be blank. That's been fixed. I think I had some overlapping atlases, like icon atlases, that I couldn't find normally, so that took some bug fixing and it was very weird, but it's fixed now, that's all that matters. There are also some offsets here so I can adjust how this icon looks, basically, when it pops up here. So I can use any icon in the game for that, essentially. And then over here, obviously, this is just the item icon itself, and then this is scaled up twice. So that's kind of cool. Again, no stats here, and you can see down here it just requires 2 sapphire. I will say that this recipe is probably not going to exist. I mean, a recipe like it might exist, but this actual, the ingredients literally could not matter less. It's just I decided to go with 2 sapphires. So I'm going to go ahead and try to find 2 sapphires. Oh, there we go. Very convenient. So these are sapphires. Again, this is... Okay, it's not doing it this time. I guess it was just for the Jasper. That's very, very odd bug. But regardless, we're going to go ahead in here and click on this and click on this, and we can see that it pops up with sapphire. It doesn't give us any warning messages because we do obviously have a sapphire in inventory. So we're going to go ahead and pick that for our ingredient here, and then when I hit craft, I'm going to say ahead of time this does not actually subtract 2 from your inventory, and it still drops them. Both of those things, I will also say, are not actual bugs. They're designed that way purposefully for bug testing because I don't like having it actually subtract all of my items and then not give me them back. It's just annoying having to pick up, say, 3 or 4 of an item every time you craft something. So dropping a certain amount, say 2, of an ingredient is a thing, and actually removing them is a thing as well. Just right now they drop them and they only drop 1 of them because it's just easier on me. Anyway, I'm going to hit craft, and you can see you have successfully crafted, sorry, my mouth, you have successfully crafted a mundane vitality potion. So this is another thing, it isn't actually listed in the recipe page, but I have preset rarities for certain recipes. So certain recipes will always create a certain rarity item, if that makes sense. And this creates a vitality potion, as you saw. I can go ahead and click that, and you can see it says Vitality Potion Mundane Quality, obviously. And right now this doesn't have an item description, but to put it short, this is a consumable, and that's one of the new things that I've done as well with items, and one of the things I wanted to talk about. This is also why this screen pops up now, because it's easy to show it this way. So if you double click a consumable in your inventory, it will actually, as you'd expect, consume that item. And one of the cool things about that is that item consumables have free-form functions. So that doesn't make a lot of sense, I'm sure. But the idea is that I can put whatever code I want in the item consume function. So it could literally be anything. It could spawn 10 more of itself, which would be funny, but obviously would be insane. It can give you a spell. It could take away a spell. It could improve a spell. In this case, it gives you, I believe 5 reserves, which is again completely not representative of what I have in mind for these recipes. It's just an example, but it's to demonstrate the idea that I can put basically whatever I want in an item consumable and have it function as an item consumable. So if I double click this, watch my reserves here, you can see my reserves goes up by 5, or my bonus reserves goes up by 5, that is. So very basic, but the idea is there. Obviously, that's not necessarily the only function. As I said previously, it could basically be anything, which is the exciting thing. I like the idea of having freeform consumables, and the idea is for blacksmithing to be armor primarily, and then a weapon, and then all 3 of the crafts will be able to improve that weapon. That is, the blacksmith will create the items, the lapidarist will create the amulet and the ring, and also be able to inlay gems in the other items, and then the alchemist will be able to provide consumables with various different functions, as well as kind of I was thinking of oils for weapons, as well as a couple other things like buffs for armor and that kind of thing. So each of the crafts, I should say, will play into each other and play into each other's benefits, so they'll kind of coincide with each other. That's the idea anyway. I did have this discussion earlier, and this is just kind of a off-topic thing, or sort of related tangential thing. I don't want the crafts to be too strong, and that's actually something I was thinking about recently. I've kind of been on this roll where I've just been giving crafts lots and lots of stuff, and I want them to be a key component of the game because I want them to be exciting. Crafts are obviously one of the most fun things in the game because you get to actually make something in the game, so they are supposed to be important, but at the same time I want to avoid making them so strong that they're actually basically giving yourself power. So obviously I don't want any pluses to combat in mastery trees, and if I make crafting too good, like for instance if I were to say make blacksmithing weapons so good that you're basically just paying mastery points to get extra power for yourself in terms of combat power because of being able to make weapons for yourself, it causes problems because that's basically a combat mastery. So it's just something you have to work out, or I have to work out, I guess, and I think I'm going to be toning back my ideas for crafting a little bit, just a very little bit, and trying to focus on more utility-based stuff. So I want alchemy to be very focused on, being able to refund spells, or being able to change spell focuses, or etc., being able to change stat expenditures, that kind of thing, and then kind of round out blacksmithing and lapidary so that they're not so strong that they're actually just more worth to go for the combat value for yourself than for your ability to create things, if that makes sense. I do think that's everything. I know we're already at 30 minutes, or 13 minutes, not 30 minutes, so even if we did have something else, I really wouldn't have the time for it. I apologize about this bug, by the way. It's very strange with the Jasper, but regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed. I tried to fit everything I could into this one, but I went off on a few tangents here and there, so I hope you guys appreciate, that and the new updates and everything. Next time I'll be showing off more crafting stuff, hopefully more polished, as well as just more content in general. I want to fill out these recipes, and just as a quick note, these do only appear if you have the respective crafting mastery. So if I didn't have blacksmithing, I wouldn't see this tab, and they'd all move up accordingly. I figured that was kind of self-explanatory, but goes without saying, I guess. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys look forward to the next one. Have a good day.